Welcome to Truth Sentinel, watching over the truth in the news. I hope you're all doing well. Sorry it's been a while since we've done a show. Life happens. What was it John Lennon said? What was it that John Lennon said? Life is what happens while you're busy making plans. That's what he said. So I've been busy making lots of plans, and this has been the first opportunity been able to do a show, and there's been so much happening. Sometimes it's better, to leave it for a while so we've got plenty to talk about. Just want to ask my IT department. There's a busy crew of IT people working out there. So I haven't met them all yet. I must shake hands with each and every one of them. But IT department, I wonder if you just could confirm that I'm coming through. Oh, there we go. Kieran from the IT department says Rumble's working fine. Hopefully I'm coming through clear on YouTube. If not, then I'm sure that Kieran in the IT department will fiddle around. We'll go to the server room. He has to go down 3 flights of stairs. The Truth Sentinel building is quite something to behold, Let me just get the chat back. So welcome everyone. This is another episode of Truth Sentinel, a call-in show. So later on, if anyone wants to come and join us, I will send the link so you can come and give your opinion on what's been happening in the world. So let me just do a quick scan on some of the things we might be talking about today. And then I'll bring Seth in as well. He can give us the American perspective. And of course, if there's any other people from other parts of the world, when I send out the link, just come and join us. All you need to do is get a headset. We can even switch off the video as it might use up a bit too much bandwidth. But we'll do that later. So probably today we're going to be talking about war, maybe civil wars in various countries, preparation for war. Nuclear attacks, climate change agendas, stabbings in the UK and the riots that have been happening there. I'm also going to be talking a little bit, if we get the chance, about the voices in people's heads. People always say, some of these killers always say, the voices told me to do it. Nobody ever investigates it. Nobody ever takes them seriously. Who are the voices? And I have a little experience to share about that as well. I had a bit of an incident here, a very crazy incident about a month ago. And it involves targeted individuals, by the way. I saw a link today about the Nord Stream pipeline explosion. Thought I'd give an update on that. World War III, conscription, Trump assassination attempt, of course. Anything... We'll probably mention the, what should we call them? Jibby jabs? I don't know. Those deaths, the people are dying suddenly. What else? I might mention the Truth Sentinel book. I need you to help give me motivation. I've almost finished chapter 1, but there's 12 chapters. And if a few people could sign up to show interest in that, it might give me the motivation to write the rest of it. We'll be introducing the Truth Sentinel cat later. I've got an update on him as well. It's not totally great, actually. Also, we'll probably end the show with some talk about what to do when society breaks down, getting fit, self-defense, that kind of thing. Today's show is called "The Dust Has Settled. What's Coming?" because there's been quite a few fairly major events that have happened since our last show, but I don't think they're the big ones. I think there's some even bigger ones coming probably over the next couple of months, and I do think the US election has got something to do with it. So let me just see if I've covered everything. Let me just I'll probably say it a few times during the show, but let me just remind you, we do have a website, www.truthsentinel.co.uk. I need to update it a bit more, but there's a chat room on there. There's t-shirts to buy. and a multitude of interesting things to do. I might be exaggerating there. Again, we're also streaming on Rumble today. I do want to get off YouTube. I don't like really supporting them, but all my subscribers are here, so I do encourage you to check out the Rumble stream. Let me just put that in the link in the chat. But if you go to www.rumble.com and type in Truth Sentinel, you should find our channel, and you'll find links to the show there. Here's the link to the Rumble stream, which is happening at the moment. Great to see you again, Andre, as well. Nice to see you, Bob. Nice to see you, Kieran, there in the chat. Remember, if there's anything you want us to discuss today, please mention it in the chat, and later you can come and join us too. Let me just see if there's anything else. Just a reminder of the email address, scottsentinel9@gmail.com. That's Scott with 2 T's. scottsentinel9@gmail.com. Scott, actually, sorry, I think I lied there. Hang on a minute. Was it Gmail? Yeah, it was gmail.com. Sorry, slightly worried there. It was a .co.uk. Other things we'll be talking about, maybe the UK stabbings, which allegedly led to riots. What else? We'll bring Seth in a minute. I'll post various links during the show. Maybe if anyone fancies contributing to the channel sometime, I'll put those links in later. I'll also be featuring some music today from Senses. I'm sure that's not his name, or it could be a she, I don't know. Senses, I promised you I'd play you one of your tracks. I chose one today. We've got a number of musical contributors these days. We've got Bob, we've got Seth. I've still got some tracks of Seth's to play. I've got a new one of Bob's to play. Senses is today's contributor. Anyone else who has some ethical music that kind of might tie in with the topics we talk about, please send them in. It doesn't even have to be about the topics we talk about. I'm going to actually feature one of my own singles maybe next month, which is a love song. We need to spread a bit of peace and love in the world as well. Let me know if my microphone's popping, because I might be saying too many P's, and my mouth might be too near the microphone. That'll do for now, I think. I'm going to bring Seth in, and then we'll talk about some of the topics. Let me just see what Kieran said. Kieran, you probably should play "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life." Yeah, the way things are going, something like that might be good to play. Let's bring Seth in and see how he's getting on. Seth, can you hear me okay?
Yes, indeedy.
You're coming through loud and clear as well. How are you, Seth? It's been a while. Actually, it's only been 2 months, maybe 2.5 months.
Yeah, just a little while, just tiny amount of time. It's not like some huge things have happened at all in the news or anything like that to make everything go absolutely freaking insane.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's been going up in your neck of the woods? Anything interesting?
A whole ton, but also if you randomly hear anything that sounds like a random pack of tiny horses running around, that's kittens. Okay, just for anybody in the audience, if you hear random meows and other stuff, that's just there's kittens here that are running around. So whatever. It's happening. But we have a whole hell of a lot to talk about. We have the Trump assassination. We have Biden stepping down for his next not seeking re-election. We have Kamala deciding who her VP is and whatnot and pushing forward with that. We've got war brewing in the Middle East. We've got serious military actions in Russia and in Ukraine. And yeah, things are basically heating up all over the place. Good times.
They sure are. They sure are. Maybe we should start with the Trump assassination, because it's always good to get your perspective over there. And I mean, there were some people saying it was all set up. Personally, I don't think it was. I think it was legitimate. But I think there's my personal opinion is there's different levels to the kind of deep state, and just one of the lower levels decided they wanted to take Trump out. But I don't. I think if the higher levels of the deep state wanted to take Trump out, he'd already be dead. You know. So I think it's maybe one of the lower levels they wanted to do that, and yeah, pretty interesting. Looks like it was a stand down. This you can't be that incompetent. Everyone, I think at least 50% of people who've seen that event believe there was a stand down because it's just too stupid. The Secret Service would just have to be too stupid. So I think somebody wanted him dead. They failed, but they might try again. I don't think necessarily Trump's the good guy, but if I was in America and I was voting, which I probably wouldn't be because I've never voted in my life, I don't really think the political system is worth taking part in. But if someone had a gun to my head and made me choose between the Biden administration and Trump, I'd go for Trump purely for the entertainment, and maybe it would slow things down a bit, but I don't even know if that's the case. I mean, look what happened last time when Trump was in power. The pandemic ran pretty smoothly, and he even rolled out the jibby jab. So, what's your general impression of the Trump assassination attempt?
Generally seems to be pretty suspect to me. Wait a minute, give me a second. I got to stop a cat from electrocuting itself.
Ah, good idea.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Cat attacking my electrical cable. That's always fun. But in general, I think is very likely, high likelihood of it being staged on some level. The fact that Secret Service could be able to stand down and have no ability to know what the hell they're talking about and allow somebody in when there was as high a security as there is on everything, when they have supposedly drone footage from aerial footage the entire time going back, relaying to people, and like dozens of Secret Service people there at the time, there's really no way that something like that would be able to happen without some serious sort of pushback and them knowing about this ahead of time. I mean, supposedly the FBI with that, what is it, Thomas Matthew Crooks or Matthew, whatever, they knew about this guy beforehand. But as with all things, you can never tell if it's truly just some crazy person, though it's really convenient for that. Also, I don't know, man, with the whole Trump having his ear bandaged the entire time, how that became such a symbol, the idea of the Secret Service just allowing Trump to continue standing, holding his fist up, like he's freaking Jesse Owens at the Olympics or something, is pretty cringy and pretty ridiculous. And I think there's a lot of people that want to jump onto that because that fills into their Trump hero ethos sort of narrative that they've created. But in reality, it seems very, 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 very suspicious. But we've got a lot to talk about here. In that case, we have Homeland Security Secretary names independent panel to review Trump assassination attempt. This was July 21st. So it's been a hot minute, Scott. We've been trying to set this stuff up for like a month to actually have this. So I've got news articles from between like very, very recently and set back a while ago. But the head of the Secret Service actually ended up stepping down. They've replaced them or her, and it's a whole lot of nonsense as far as people like positioning on each other. I've gotten to hear more than enough from Republican spaces and Republican people in this, Trumpsters and whatnot, that just really, 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 really deeply want to believe in all this, and for good reason. I mean, if he was going to have it be staged, there's a great precedent for that because pretty much every single major candidate that's had an assassination attempt against them in like the last 80 years has won their respective race. This isn't just an American thing. This is why would they try to assassinate him? He must know the things the bad people want to stop or whatever, right? That itself seems kind of contrived, especially considering how little of an injury he had, because they say he was shot with a 223. And in that part of his arm, the little amount of damage that we've seen, especially once he removed the ear covering, I've heard people try and make up bullshit excuses. Sorry, pardon the language. That have tried to come up with excuses for why that would be. Well, no, he just has a really good plastic surgeon and whatnot. I'm like, I don't think you understand, man. This wasn't like a 22 long rifle or something like that. We're talking something big enough. It would have at least punched a big enough hole in his ear, taken a big enough chunk out of his ear, where you'd notice it. This would be something to see.
Surely, it depends on how much you clip an ear. Because if the bullet doesn't even touch the ear, but there's 1 millimeter alongside it, it might still cause some damage, right? But only a tiny bit of damage. I mean, there's going to be a point where a bullet flies past your ear where it does very little damage, but maybe just nicks it. I think that's technically possible.
Okay, fair enough. But I also don't get the reaction initially of saying it was pieces of broken glass that they were using. That was, oh my God, it was a piece of broken glass because something got shot and then that cut Trump's ear. And then it became the bullet cut Trump's ear. And the entire narrative there has been very, very weak. And
Yeah,
I mean, all the Republicans and everybody getting the ear bandages on and everything showed that it was
that was very cringy.
Action. Oh
that
yeah,
was very cringy. But
it's galvanizing action for the and virtue signaling for a bunch of right-wing people. The very people that would tell you virtue signaling is terrible and why would anybody virtue signal? They engage in their own version of it, like right now.
Yeah,
and it's pretty pathetic and cheesy. But
I didn't think it looked staged. I mean, there are other channels talking about it being completely staged, but I didn't think it looked like it. If you looked at the audience reactions and even Trump's reaction, yeah, if you had rehearsals, maybe I don't know. It didn't look staged to me. For me, unless something at least looks staged, then I don't go down that route. But anything's possible, but I can't see it. I think it looks. I think there's enough people out there that want to kill Trump anyway. It doesn't even matter if it was the top of the deep state or not. So I think it was technically possible for it to be real as well. And personally, I'm going for it was a real attempt, and it looked like a stand down because the amount of if it was faked. I do agree with some people who dismiss some conspiracies because there's too many people that have to be involved. And I think for it to go down the faked route, there are a number of people that have to be involved in I think it's less likely.
Scott, in a way that even if it was an inside job assassination attempt, how many people would have to be involved for that? To have certain members of the Secret Service allow
Trump
someone
would be on
through,
it, right? If we're talking like the whole thing was staged, Trump would have to be on it.
Yeah, and he's somebody that's been in professional wrestling stuff before. One of the oldest tricks in the book is cutting your ear, cutting your eyebrow, cutting your nose, something like that, and using the blood. Yeah, that's
the team around him. Maybe one or two. I think there's a number of people. I wouldn't like to list who would be, but I think there has to be some. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy the whole thing's faked. In this case, I think it was real because you have to ask yourself: is the payback? Okay, there are some. If you fake it, then you might get a bit of a sympathy vote. But I think the chances of getting caught don't make it. The risk is not worth the effort. I just don't think it's worth it.
I don't know if there's enough people that would actually catch him on any of this, man. Dude has literally bragged that he could get elected and still like blow somebody's brains out on Main Street, shoot him right in the face, and that everybody'd still vote for him. And the fact is, the people that are going to vote for him are still going to vote for him. I know people that even with everything about him, man, that has come forth, they don't care. They don't care. They're still going to vote for him because that's their boy.
Same on the other
side,
though, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's why I don't get it. Like
I actually think they might have.
It's the whole team mentality we've talked about before, where people will they belong to a team, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Biden was caught raping a kid; they would still vote for him because they're just on that team, you know.
Granted, I think, and we can talk about this, but that him stepping down might be the actual best thing that he could have done for the Democrats when it comes to the presidential campaign or the presidential race, because he was pretty dead in the water, and everything Trump has done into this point has been an A2 sort of a thing of like, you're like Donald Trump's old and irrelevant, but you're older and more irrelevant, Joe. Stuff like that. with Kamala Harris, he doesn't get to use any of that shit. And they've been spending way too much time preparing for that and pushing into the, oh, look at him. He's a relevant old man. And they're really going to have this moron up there with Trump. Kamala's not exactly well spoken by any means, but she's also not a literal dementia patient, right?
Yeah.
So I have a feeling they're going to have a lot better
in her favor.
Also, having Tim
does...
Walz for her VP, I think, is actually a better angle for them, because a lot of the Fox News people and even a lot of mainstream Democrats are going, "Oh my God, they're promoting stuff for and pushing the further left wing of the party, the furthest extremists and whatnot." But their idea of extremists include people like Bernie Sanders, who, while I would consider extreme, are infinitely more popular than whoever the hell else they were going to get out there. Joe Biden is like an old dry dog turd in the sun. He's done.
Who's running the country over there now, though? Because
he's still supposed to be in charge, but I mean, the people that handle him have always been in charge.
Yeah,
well, I mean, obviously,
has he ever been in charge?
Yeah, facts. I think it genuinely, whoever was running Obama is probably running Biden, but that's duh, right? In the same way that whoever was running Bush was likely running Bush Senior, and whoever is running Donald Trump is likely a lot of people that were involved in the last Bush, what would you call it?
Administration.
Cabinet. Yeah, administration.
Yeah. It should be interesting anyway, whether it's pantomime or not. Come November, that's when your elections are. I think whatever happens, whatever the result is, there's going to be mayhem, and then maybe leading up to that as well. So they might try and run another pandemic or something like that.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm not naive in the sense of like what's going to happen with any of these people. If Kamala and Tim Walz win, it's going to be a real bad time. Tim Walz himself used to be a very big pro-gun Democrat type guy who's completely flip-flopped on that in every conceivable way the second he's been in charge. And so probably going to be the exact same thing. I doubt a whole lot is going to change with Kamala in general over Joe Biden. She's pretending that she's not super pro-Israel, pro-Zionism and whatnot, but she's done all the same stuff Biden has and is co-signed onto everything. I think she's going to try to appeal to a lot younger demographic amongst mainly left-wing voters. But that sort of stuff doesn't really make it, how do I put this? She's not really going to be actually different enough to make a real difference in terms of the direction that our country is going right now versus the first Biden administration or the only Biden administration. Well, we'll see, right? But I also don't know, because Donald Trump has acted like he wants to win this, but at the same time, he's made so many blunders and so many gaffes that it is kind of embarrassing. I mean, where is it? The Trump campaign just confirmed, what is it? We received internal Trump documents. This is out of Politico from Robert. Then the campaign confirmed it was hacked. Supposedly they're blaming Iran or the Iranian intelligence agencies for having hacked the Trump administration's or the Trump campaign's information, that they have all their secret documents and stuff. And I find that itself very interesting because, again, we use, oh my God, he's been hacked by the evil bad guys that America right now is trying to paint as the big evil monsters, because Israel has already indicated a very, and we will talk about this, a very, very distinct sort of disdain for Iran, and a very big target has been painted on Iran, to the point where missile strikes have been made deep into Iranian territory, and like political leaders and stuff have been killed. And yet people just are like, whatever. I mean, nothing ever happens. Just another day in the Middle East. It's kind of painful to see all of this and to see the narrative that's being created here. I have a feeling that regardless, we are going to have a United States that is in favor of Israeli aggression and is going to do not a whole ton to create peace in Gaza or in Palestine in general. And I have a feeling that regardless of who's there, it's going to be bad. But if Donald Trump wins, it is definitively going to be worse, man, because Trump will back them up all the way.
I would go the opposite way. I would say, well, I think I'm not sure it's going to make any difference. I think Kamala's demented, and the whole Biden administration is as well. And they've always been wanting to attack Iran as well. So
big
I
time.
think it'll happen either way. And unfortunately, there just seems so many pathways to World War III at the moment, and nobody really trying to stop it. That I think World War III is definitely on the cards. I hate to say it, but
You want to
you've got
start covering a bit
Iran,
of
Israel. You've got Ukraine now venturing into Russian territory in the last
Yep.
few days, which is just going to be so provocative. It just shows you. I mean, they might feel justified, but it just shows you that they want the war to intensify.
Yeah.
From my perspective, they're all heading towards World War III, and it's all interconnected because Russia are tied with Iran,
Yeah, big
Ukraine are
time.
with the
Same with
West.
China.
It's
Yeah.
World War III, and I just wanted to show this link that I saw last month actually. Let me try and show this. I keep seeing stuff like this everywhere. I'll just try and share this. I keep seeing this stuff in related to different countries. I don't know if it's going to let me share this actually. Hang on a minute. Doesn't seem to be working. Okay, never mind. If I'll try and get that working later.
It was worth the
Basically,
attempt.
let me just read it instead. It says the UK must be ready to fight war in 3 years, says the head of the British Army. Britain must be ready to fight a war in 3 years, the new head of the army has said. General Sir Roland Walker has warned against a range of threats in which he called an increasingly volatile world. But he said it was not inevitable, but I disagree with him. I think they already know this is going to happen because you can find links like that in various countries. They're all preparing for war and they're all mentioning the 2 to 3 years mark. I think that's when it's going to be at its most intensive, but I think it's probably going to start before then. As Kieran says, and then you've got civil war. Everything seems to be heading towards civil war in both the US and the UK, because we had did you hear about the events in the UK over the last few weeks?
Oh yeah, I have, Scott. It's gotten pretty spicy.
Do you know one of the reasons why I think that went global, whereas it might have stayed a little bit more in the UK? And I don't think this is a coincidence. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but the original thing started off with somebody running into a children's area that was a Taylor Swift event. This is the thing I don't think was a coincidence. This is why I think this person was probably connected with the secret services or something. But they were supposed to go into a Taylor Swift event. All this is a terrorist event, and it was deliberately targeting a Taylor Swift event because there was a lot of secrecy involving the identity of the person. In the few days and the week after this stabbings, he allegedly killed a few kids and some adults as well. And yeah, if you tried to find the identity of the person, it was just a complete cover up. Nobody was saying, not even the people who witnessed the stabbings. Maybe they told the press the identity of the killer, but nobody was. The press weren't saying anything. Turned out it was a Rwandan. They called it a child, but he was 17. 3 days later, he turned 18. Nobody's talking about why this person ran in there. That's not been discussed, as far as I can see, anywhere in the media. Everything was then focused on the riots that occurred afterwards, because some people are just probably sick of the media just covering up identities of the attackers and trying to make. They did deliberately try to make out that it was a white Welsh person. Just in the manner they described this person, it made it sound like it was not somebody who came from a family that emigrated to the UK. Put it that way.
Yeah,
But
well,
then
given a lot of the alt-right sort of angle here worldwide, that has been really a big problem, especially when it comes to race or ethnic tensions and whatnot. I very much so think that feels super contrived and how they play it up in order to create as much tension as possible. Whereas if they just
Yeah,
told you the identity of this person, it would still have inflamed tensions, but not nearly as bad as allowing people to just have rampant speculation, wildfire, insanity.
absolutely. I think they deliberately try to create these situations because they want to stoke up maybe civil war in the US and in the UK. I don't know why it's not letting me share links because I had another one. Because after I'd already suggested that this was no, no, I think I can share now. After suggesting that this was no coincidence that it was Taylor Swift, I then saw this article a couple of days later, maybe a week later. There was then an article about a Taylor Swift gig that was cancelled in another country because another 19-year-old was planning to kill a large crowd of people using knives in Vienna, Austria. Officials say the teen, who had previously pledged allegiance to the Islamic State group, confessed that he intended to carry out an attack using explosives and knives. He's one of two suspects arrested. Shows have been cancelled. I think they mentioned some other people that were going to do the same thing. There was some other people, 19 and 17-year-olds. My point is, the police have said in the UK that the event that happened in England, where a Rwandan 19-year-old ran in and stabbed some kids, was not a terrorist event. But then a week later, you have another 19-year-old. His attempt was foiled, but he was going to go and stab some people, and he's from the Islamic State. I just think there's lies and cover-ups being told, and that's what got people upset. There was some misinformation, somewhat. The problem is there could be government infiltrators. There's also in large groups. There's always people who go too far. So you have these riots that broke out, shops smashed, and hotels.
And they were
hotels
calling them race
invaded.
riots.
Yeah, well, I guess in some way there was a racial aspect because some of the people are racist, but the majority of them aren't. They're just fed up with being lied to. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. When you've got a large crowd of people, you're going to have some bad eggs in there.
Well, it's kind of like the Canadian trucker thing during the lockdowns and stuff, where it gets turned into something that it's not necessarily, but there are a lot of people attached to it that can be really bad faith sort of people that are just trying to jump on it to be like, them goddamn Muslims, I tell you what. And it's kind of cringy. I've seen it here in the United States really, really bad, but it's definitely a thing. And I feel like it's part of the culture divide that they get to use on people to play up into stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? Do you want to get more into the Ukraine stuff for a moment, or do you want to keep on this?
I just wanted to mention that the reason why I think the Rwandan chose the Taylor Swift Child's event was to make it global, because then Taylor Swift herself tweeted about the event, said she was really upset, and that brought in the rest of the world. So as Kieran says, I think Taylor Swift being upset got more coverage than any other facts. Also, the riots overshadowed the stabbings. So now no one's discussing what the motivation was for this kid running into and stabbing 6-year-old kids to death, Kieran also says, the fake website that was set up and fooled people. Not sure what you mean by that, Kieran. Maybe you could expand. Kieran also says the dregs of society came out and ruined all the process. Yeah, there are some kind of like football hooligan types that usually join in with that crowd.
Yeah,
but
well,
the majority
here in the
of
United States,
were non-violent.
Here in the United States, we've had like high school and college, even professional sports games that afterwards you'll end up with people like 3 or 4 people shot or stabbed or some crap. And so, I mean, that part's not entirely a surprise. But if you add in some like Islamic extremism angles to everything, Taylor Swift is a perfect example of somebody that you could throw out there of like the great Satan or something to a lot of these people, because she's blonde, white, famous, very materialistic, capitalistic kind of Western, a symbol of Western excess and opulence and whatnot, extravagance that these people get to put up as like their big devil target, right? So that much makes sense as far as
She does have a devil boyfriend, though.
I have no idea.
She's going out with Kelsey, somebody or other, one of the American football guys. And he just did an advert. I think he's done a couple now for. He was paid a couple of million, I believe, for doing an advert for Pfizer, encouraging people to take their mRNA jabs. So, yeah, that's why I think he's a bit of a.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I get that. But again, he wouldn't be the first guy to accept a paycheck for something without actually knowing what the hell he's talking about. Kieran says a fake website appeared the day after the stabbing, quote unquote, proving it was an illegal immigrant that had stabbed the girls, providing fake name and details. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean about the people stepping in to try and turn it into another direction. Whereas if the media were to just come out immediately, tell you what it is and tell you who this is, then that's not a problem.
Exactly.
Right? It would still be a problem, but not that bad.
If they had actually said, then you wouldn't have the fake website. So I think it was contrived. The riots were contrived. And now you've got like full censorship clampdown going on in the UK. You're not allowed to share videos of the riots. You're not allowed to claim certain things. People have been arrested for retweeting stuff now. People are getting a year in prison for sending tweets, which the police said that they believed sparked off the riots. I don't think people go and riot because they saw a tweet. I think that's been over exaggerated. So it makes me think that part of this has been contrived to. We have a new prime minister in the UK, Keir Starmer, who's a World Economic Forum guy. And I can see him bringing in like a total tyranny in the UK with the censorship has gone to another level now.
Yeah, well, they've clearly been practicing this for a long time and getting prepared for this for a very, very long time, because control of information is like a British staple of government. It's something that goes way beyond your generation to your parents, to your grandparents, even generation, that they've been doing this. The internet and control of the internet is just a newer medium that they're attempting to like clamp down on and do exactly the same way they've done everything else when it comes to the dissemination of information. British government has always been brutal. God damn it, cat.
And Kieran says a woman who shared that website with the fake name which they put out because the media were just being ridiculous. She's been imprisoned now, allegedly. So, I mean, it's just got ridiculous. The people are going to prison for tweeting. There's a whole police force now dedicated to scouring the internet for people spreading misinformation.
Wrong thing. Yeah.
Or I mean, you should be allowed to get things wrong and not go to prison. You could tweet something out and it not be correct. You can apologize. You don't go to prison. And I think there's this assumption that if you tweet out something, it causes a riot. I think that's rubbish.
I think they're trying to create a chilling effect.
Yeah. People riot. The thugs that go around damaging things and causing violence, they're like that anyway. They just need any excuse. They don't look at a tweet and then go, okay, I'm going to go and kill someone. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, agreed.
There was one comment by Bob I just wanted to mention. Where has it gone? Where's that comment? It's gone. That's weird. It's disappeared. Never mind. He mentioned he was down the pub having a drink, so I've got my Stella Artois here. I thought I'd have a drink. Over to you, Seth.
Right on. Well, we have two big directions we can go first. The last one I wanted to cover was stuff with Israel, but the two main directions we have are hacking and the outage, the big IT outage that happened last month that absolutely crippled airlines and just ground everything to a standstill. The CrowdStrike crash or whatever, because it was a crash, and then we have hacking. Right, because AT&T's company, Snowflake, a company they act with, has been hacked and was like one of the biggest hacks to have ever been done. And then the Heritage Foundation was hacked because of the Project 2025 stuff. A particular group hacked them. So we've got that to talk about if you'd like to, or we can pivot to talking more about stuff with Ukraine. You're muted, Scott.
Yep. There was the big outage. What was the name of that? CrowdStrike, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like that could be the precursor to a bigger one coming later. Everyone's been talking about that they're going to shut the internet down. And if you shut the internet down, there's a lot of power stations that go down as well. And if they did that for like, Klaus Schwab even mentioned that, like, he was saying a cyber attack with the power and the internet going down would make COVID look like it was insignificant in comparison. That could be coming as well, maybe before the election or after the election, the US election.
Yeah, and they don't have to do it for very long. The whole CrowdStrike thing was, I think, a couple hours, and that was enough to absolutely just debilitate everybody. Whereas if they did it for a couple days, it could literally just everything grinds to a halt. They do it for a week or two, and now people are dying all over the place.
Did you ever see the old TV series called Revolutions? I think it was. The whole premise with the world, the internet and the power had gone down everywhere for like years. And it was like a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
It ended up being a bit of a comedy because some of the acting was like really bad. But yeah, I can see that happening. Anyway, we've got so many things to talk about, so we'll probably go on for another hour or so. Can you kind of list what kind of things you're going to talk about, and then we can pick some of them? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I had the hacking and the CrowdStrike stuff and whatnot. We can go a little bit more into those if you'd like. Then I have stuff with Ukraine, then stuff with Israel, and then a couple randoms like Kamala. This is out of RT. Kamala Harris running ads with fake news headlines. And then ABC has a Wyoming reporter caught using artificial intelligence to create fake quotes and stories. Personally, I thought that was a nice, like a lighthearted sort of approach, considering what is the difference between that and then just repeating and parroting everything else you've heard from somebody, whether or not it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, they're both fake. It's both BS. It's just one of them happens to be giving you the party line, and the other happens to be some randomly algorithm generated nonsense. At the end of the day, you're being fed disinformation either way.
Kamala's so fake that even if she made an AI version of herself, I wouldn't be able to notice the difference. I mean,
facts.
I don't like all their contrived political games as well. You know, like they're using the term weird now.
Yeah, but honestly, I've seen that it's crazy effective at getting people to like turtle up and then take the back step and are on the defensive at that point. And then it allows the other person to absolutely obliterate them, because so many people, at least that they're using that sort of stuff on, are worried about normativity and are worried about being seen as like a conformist baseline. And so thus, when you're seeing it's weird, then suddenly, oh my God, my ideals are being considered not the norm. Oh, it's definitely psychological warfare, political games.
It's kind of childish, though. I just find it
for sure.
I find it.
But honestly,
I mean,
Scott,
you'd have to be a bit of a brain dead retard to be affected by that.
You're also old enough to have seen a lot of the BS when it comes to women in politics. Of the fact that
steady on, I'm not that old. Seth.
No, I mean in general of. Since like from the mid to late 80s to now, almost every time you have a major female figure in politics, she has to be accused of having slept her way to the top, having whatever. And even though a lot of this could be true about Kamala, them using that against her makes them seem completely flippant, completely childish, completely ridiculous, versus using the stuff that actually matters, like her being a giant hypocrite, her being a liar, her being pro arresting people for marijuana usage and whatnot, and being pro big state government and stuff. Again, that becomes something that there's a lot of ladies out there that have a ridiculous laugh. There's a lot of guy like politicians out there that have ridiculous ass laughs, and yet people just for some reason everybody's gotten used to this Obama image thing where it's just the fake. Oh, how's it going there, folks? You know that
Obama is so fake. You know, like the NPC tag. I consider Obama as like Obama and Clinton and Kamala. I think they're more like NPCs. They just look like programmed individuals. I'm not a supporter of Trump, but I think that's his appeal. Not just him, some other people as well, like who are less like NPCs. They're not like programmed. They're a bit more spontaneous. Whereas you've got Obama, he just walks along with this swagger. It's a smooth talker. When I initially heard Obama, I thought, wow, this guy's a great talker. And then later, I just got fed up with his swagger and his smooth talking, you know. But people
I've
don't
never
want
known that
the
it's that
fakeness.
smooth. It's just artificial in the sense that,
Artificial,
well,
yeah.
Scott, if I add pauses into how I'm talking, then that means that even
and the fake
stupidest
laugh
person.
So the laugh
out
does
there.
come into it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, that's because
The
it's a
cackling
whole
or the
persona.
fake laugh, you know. Yeah.
It's a whole persona, man. I get it. Kieran mentioned something that I just brought up a news article for that I'd like to talk about. Have to mention how evil Disney are as well. The woman who died due to their fault, they refused to pay compensation to the family because her husband had signed up for Disney Plus. That sounded too crazy for me to not look up. I had to right here. And we have out of the BBC, Disney Plus terms prevent allergy death lawsuit, Disney says. Okay. Disney World is arguing a man cannot sue it over the death of his wife because of the terms he signed to in a free trial of Disney Plus. Jeffrey Piccolo filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Disney after his wife died in 2023 from a severe allergic reaction after eating at a restaurant at the theme park. However, Disney argues its terms of use, which Mr. Piccolo agreed to in creating his Disney account of 2019, means they have to settle out of court. Representatives for Disney and Jeffrey Piccolo have been contacted for comment. Mr. Piccolo alleges that the restaurant at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, that he and his wife had dined at did not take enough care over her severe allergies to dairy and nuts, despite being repeatedly told about them. Dr. Kanakporn Tangswan died in a hospital later that day, 5th October,
like
2023.
That sounds like a Thai name, yeah.
I've never heard of Canuck porn before, but it sounds like a heck of
a lot of Thai people have the word porn at the end of their word.
I'm sorry, it's sad to do, but like that just
sad, yeah.
Okay. According to the legal filing, her death was confirmed by a medical examiner as a result of anaphylaxis, makes sense, due to elevated levels of dairy and nuts in her system. He is he's suing Disney for a sum in excess of $50,000. That is not a lot, plus legal costs. Disney wants the case in the courts to be halted and the dispute to be resolved out of court in a process called arbitration. Yeah, naturally. The entertainment company argues it cannot be taken to court because in its terms of use, it says users agree to settle any disputes with the company via arbitration. What? It says Mr.
Have I got this right? They're saying that he signed up for the Disney Channel or something.
Disney Plus. Disney Plus is a streaming service they have that's like Netflix or...
What's that got to do with their restaurant, though?
That's what I'm saying. But the fact is, so many of these companies have gotten absolutely insane when it comes to what they think they can get away with their terms and conditions. As a gamer, I've been dealing with this crap for a while. Of video games companies just acting like they're like, oh no, yeah, we basically own your software and stuff. If anything that touches has our game on it or whatever, you can't sue us for anything, even if it gives your computer a virus, even if it destroys anything, because technically you signed the terms of use deal by buying it. Well, that's Disney's trying something like that. That is insane. In 2019, he signed up for the Disney Plus streaming service, and the stuff with his wife happened, this year? Yeah.
That seems crazy.
That's one of the most insane things I've ever heard.
So you could fall off the top floor of the BBC headquarters, and they could say, we don't owe you a penny because you signed up for a BBC online TV account.
Granted, I don't think anybody other than Disney would be quite so arrogant enough as to do this, but hey, man, I could be surprised. Holy crap.
As Kieran says, we all need to start to realize these giant corporations are evil beyond belief, and we should start properly checking all terms and conditions. Kieran, Agreed. That sounds good, but I can't be bothered to read them still.
Oh, dude, I feel it. I feel that, though.
Maybe one last topic before we have a musical break.
Okay, Seth? Sounds good. Let's see. We had the stuff on CrowdStrike and its IT blackouts. The Texas was all because of a Texas-based cybersecurity firm called CrowdStrike that had an update. Had software update interacting with Windows that caused a crash to Windows. That is absolutely amazing because it's not like everybody uses Windows. So, of course, everybody that uses Macs, Linux, anything like that, totally fine. Whatever. It's great. It was just Windows users that are effective. Well, thank God Windows and Microsoft have made sure that those aren't on like a third of all computers in the entire like United States and abroad. How wonderful for that. But so we had that. And then for our last
on
thing,
that topic, did you realize that that CrowdStrike was the same company that got involved with Hillary Clinton's WikiLeaks email leak and stuff like that?
I thought that name sounded familiar and I couldn't quite place it. And that's the one.
Yeah. Let me just read from the Washington Post. CrowdStrike outage resurfaces debunked Trump conspiracy theory. The CrowdStrike debacle. CrowdStrike made headlines this week for causing the calamitous global outage. When Trump was president, he had blamed CrowdStrike for an alleged democratic cover-up in Ukraine, a narrative that was broadly debunked. I think it was also involved with the Hillary Clinton's emails, so it was weird that it was the same company as well. Yeah,
that's very weird. That's very, very weird. But I mean, also, it's a small world. Oh, I mean, we're just talking about Disney, so it's a small world, huh? Oh my God. But last bit before we go to break and whatnot, we had AT&T's massive data breach deepens crisis for Snowflake 7 weeks after hack was disclosed. This was from last month, about partway through last month. Snowflake has spent several the past 7 weeks dealing with fallout from major cyber attacks that compromised sensitive customer data at several of its clients. The software company's problems just got a whole lot worse. Telecommunications giant AT&T said in regulatory filing on Friday that hackers tapped into a cloud platform housing customer data, gaining access to the records of subscribers' calls and text messages during a 6-month period in 2022. The data includes phone numbers, aggregate call duration, some cell site details, AT&T said in the filing. An AT&T spokesperson told CNBC that the cloud service was owned by Snowflake. Shares in Snowflake fell 1.8% on Friday, while the NASDAQ rose overall 0.6%. But in general, it's showing that the seams are beginning to open on the at the edges of the cybersecurity blanket that has come to keep Americans and others safe worldwide. Because in reality, most of these companies don't give a crap. They're doing the bare minimum they possibly can in order to provide the tiniest bit of security in order to justify their names, but they're not actually truly secure. And most hackers and most people that even know anything about software security or cybersecurity understand that nobody's really prepared here. Nobody's really prepared, and they're completely open for anything. We've talked before about how the Bilderberg people, everybody that's at the top of this has been using the threat of a cyber attack for quite a while, and it just normalizes that, ramps it up. The last one we had was the hacktivists thing here on the Heritage Foundation. Had you heard anything about that?
Not sure. What was it about?
Okay, this is a bit of a slightly comedic tone, but it's real stuff, which blew my mind. This was from last month. They were talking about this. Hacktivists, this is out of cyberscoop.com. Hacktivists released 2 gigabytes of Heritage Foundation data. A politically oriented cybercrime group carried out the attacks in response to the Heritage Project's 2025.
Heritage Project, I know,
Heritage
were the ones.
Yeah.
They were involved with the Trump, with some Trump agenda, which some people say this was Trump's agenda, but he denies it. But the Heritage Foundation released that information. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Heritage Foundation has had tons of people in the intelligence community, like real scary dudes that just happen to have a Christian conservative lean for a long time. I mean, what is it? Former Special Forces Commander, was it Gerald Boykin, or General Jerry Boykin was like the head of the Heritage Foundation at one point. It's some spooky stuff, man. But what is it? Let's see. Continuing on, an established cybercrime group with a track record of attacking political targets posted on Tuesday roughly 2 gigabytes of data from the Heritage Foundation, prominent conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. This is where it gets good here. Self-described gay furry hackers sieged said it released the data in response to Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, a set of proposals that aims to give Donald Trump a set of ready-made policies to implement if he wins this fall's election. Its authors describe it as an initiative, quote, to lay the groundwork for a White House more friendly to the right. The data reviewed by Cyberscoop includes Heritage Foundation blogs and material related to the Daily Signal, a right-wing media site affiliated with Heritage. The data was created between 2007 and November of 2022. The group says it gained the access to the data on July 2nd, released it to provide, quote, transparency to the public regarding who exactly is supporting the Heritage Foundation. A spokesperson for the group who goes by the online handle Vio told Cyberscoop in an online chat Tuesday. The data includes, quote, the full names, email addresses, passwords, and usernames of people associating with Heritage Foundation, including users with U.S. government email addresses. This itself can have an impact on the Heritage Foundation's reputation, they added, and it'll especially push away users in positions of power. What do you think about that, Scott? Gay, furry, hacker activists.
Hacktivists, yeah.
Yes, hacktivists, sorry.
Well, they seem to be able to hack into anything these days, and I think most people should assume that all the information they have on their computers is being looked at by someone, and especially even if your bank accounts, your all kinds of different accounts, they're going to probably be available to all kinds of different people, especially these hackers who then sell them on to other people.
Yeah, well, in this case, it was at least a political job or whatever of releasing all this for political reasons. But there's way more hackers that do this just to make a quick buck off of people.
Absolutely. And if you think your information is safe, then you're living in delusion land. Delusion Land is the name of the song, today's song. This was sent to me by someone called Senses. That's not their real name, but if it Senses, if you are listening and you want us to reveal your name, go ahead and write to me, or if you're in the chat, you can let us know. But Senses gave me a link of some of his songs on SoundCloud. I picked this one out, which has got a video that coincides with it. It kind of ties in with some of the things we talk about. So we'll have a musical interlude. Then after the break, we'll come back, maybe do a quick fire discussion on some of the other topics. And then if there's anyone out there who would like to come and join us, and or if you just want to write in the chat, let us know what you've been thinking about in the last couple of months, go ahead. But here's a musical interlude.
You come in.
Delusion Land. We'll give you all the tools. We'll give you everything you need to build your own prison walls. Welcome to Delusion Land. Enjoy your residency. You better keep yourself busy, 'cause you can never leave. We got the things to entertain you. We got the sports to waste your time to. We got the things for you to pray to. We got the jobs to break your back to. We got the drugs to make the pain go. We got the drugs to make your brain go. We got the foods that will make you ill. We thought of every insane thing to rein you. Welcome in to Delusion Land. Enjoy yourself. I said welcome in to Delusion Land. Don't think for yourself. Delusion welcome to Delusion Land, Delusion Land. We have a plan to keep you here. So welcome to Delusion Land, Delusion Land. We have a plan to keep you here. So welcome to Delusion Land. We are so glad you come. You know you can never leave. You better join our code. Fix your personality. We are so glad you come. You know you can never leave. You better join our code. Fix your personality. No one ever leaves here. Let me make this quite clear. You'll never be leaving Delusion Land. No one ever leaves here. Let me make this quite clear. You'll never be leaving Delusion Land. Delusion Land, we have a plan to keep you here. So welcome to Delusion Land, Delusion Land.
Okay, welcome back to Truth Sentinel. Are we coming through loud and clear? Can you hear me, Seth?
Yes, indeed, I can. That was a pretty solid track. Reminded me kind of a little bit
That's
like
pretty good.
David Bowie
Yeah.
meets Nirvana kind of a vibes there. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it was good. We've got a lot of musical listeners out there, you know. I wanted to kick off by sharing a link. I'm just going to share this page. I wanted to talk briefly about people hearing voices. It got me thinking about it because I saw this article. Doctor warned Nottingham attacker could kill. We've got lots of stabbings going on in the UK. A lot of people are blaming them on immigrants. They're not always immigrants, but we do seem to have a high number of people doing that from different countries. But it's not only them. Anyway, there's this guy here that a doctor warned would eventually end up killing someone, but people ignored him. He kept saying he hears voices. I've always had a thing about this. People always saying, I hear voices. They're telling me to kill people. He said he was crying on the other side of the phone for 40 minutes. His name was Elias. Finally said to me, I hear voices. He ended up going out and killing some people. Let me just see who he killed just to get the facts right. I think he may have killed 3 people. It doesn't really matter anyway, because the main point is that I think more investigation should be done about where are these voices coming from. Are they just voices in people's heads? There is voice to skull technology these days. MI5 could be using that, and that's probably why it's not being investigated. It is a fact that with voice to skull technology, you can put voices in people's head and tell them to do things. So why is no one investigating the idea that all these people hearing voices are really hearing voices? It's not just voices in your head. I think most people would be able to distinguish between the thoughts you have in your head and voices. Time and time again, if you check a lot of serial killers, they will say the voices told me to do it. Mark Chapman, who killed John Lennon, he heard voices. I mean, there's a long list of people, basically. The guy who was on the Greyhound bus and decapitated the person next to him, he heard voices too. This does bring me on to a little personal story I have, which did freak me out, to be honest. It was kind of weird. I'll tell you in a moment. We did a past Truth Sentinel show many years ago when Truth Sentinel first started in the first 6 months. I did a show called Targeted Individuals. People who believe that they're targeted by the government and are being harassed with voice-to-skull technology, and who are being followed and things like that. And a lot of these people are branded kind of mentally ill. Some of them may be. I mean, Kieran says, just a moment. My nephew was friends with the two kids. Is this the same guy you talking about, Kieran? The one that I was just talking about? The family have been extremely critical of the system and allowed this to happen. Meanwhile, there's more severely mentally people than ever. Why? Yeah, I think some people are mentally ill, but the voice to skull technology may be making it worse. So what happened to me? This was about 6 weeks ago. I woke up in bed to the sound of a voice shouting, going, "Open up, open up." And I was like, what? And I looked, my eyes were just open. I looked and I could see, I live in a small room and I leave the door open every night because I live in a communal garden with like 4 people. There's a big iron gate. It's not something people can come into, and I leave the door open so the cat can come out and come in. Well, anyway, I look at the end of literally 4 meters away from the end of my bed, and there's a guy standing there. He's standing on the outside of my room, and I've closed the door a bit just to let the cat get out. But he's going, "Open up." So I stagger out of bed and I go to the door, and I said, "Well, what's the problem?" And I realize it's a guy that's just moved into the garden recently, like 2 days ago. There's like four houses. One of them is a wooden hut. And this guy had just moved in. He's just rented it for sometimes people rent them for a couple of days, sometimes for weeks. I've rented mine for a couple of years. Anyway, he goes, "Open up." I said, what's the problem? I'd met him briefly the day before. And he said, you sent your crew around to kill me last night. And immediately the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. So I thought, oh my God, I've got some kind of Fruit Loop standing at the door of my room, and I've not got any clothes on. And this guy's saying that I threatened to kill him last night, or I sent some people around to kill him. The guy was completely gone. I said, "No, what do you mean? I didn't send anyone around to kill you." And he goes, "Come on, you did. Come outside." And I said, "No, I'm staying right here. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." He kept repeating that I'd sent some people around to kill him during the night. And he started threatening to kill me. He said, if you do that again, I'll cut you. And I was like, again, the hairs on the back of my neck was down. I thought, this guy is he's seriously mental. Then I remembered I'd actually met this guy. This was weird as well, because I live on an island, and you sometimes, if you stay here for a long time, you might sometimes meet the same people again. But I remembered I'd seen this guy. I'd already spoken to this guy 2 days before in a 7-Eleven. He'd rushed into the 7-Eleven, started shouting at the cashier that he wanted his bank card back. And they didn't speak English, and they were looking at him like, what does this guy want? So I turned around because I was in the queue, and I said, "Can I help you? What's the problem?" He goes, "Oh, the machine took my card. I want it back." And I said, "These guys won't be able to help you. They work for 7-Eleven. You need to contact your bank." He was going, "Oh, okay then." Then he went out. But that's where I'd met him before. And the day before, when he moved into the garden, the day before, I'd walked past with my cat, and he asked to see my cat. I showed him the cat, and he said, "You never know what they're thinking." So I should have known he was a bit gone. But the story doesn't end quite there. Anyway, I spoke to the owner of the house, and I said, "Get this guy out of this room. He's threatened to kill me, and he's insane, and he's dangerous." Anyway, the guy, they asked him to leave, and I came back from work that day, and this guy, the crazy guy, had left a leaflet outside my room about targeted individuals, saying, "There's a lot of people out there that people think are mental, but they're actually targeted individuals." And he left a website number, and I looked at it. It was all about targeted individuals, which I've done a show on before, but it was just freaky, man. I
That is
never saw the
weird.
guy again, but it was very weird. Yeah, I've never been accused of sending people around to kill someone, and then he was threatening to kill me as well. So it was a weird story, put it that way. But I do think there's a lot of people. Maybe there's mentally ill people. Maybe there's voice to skull technology going on where people are being led to kill people. That's just my theory. What's your thoughts?
Oh,
Seth?
what are you talking about, Scott? I know that you're really the English Godfather. All right, I call you the
Well,
Scott Father.
maybe,
Yeah,
but we don't talk about that. That was supposed to be between you and me.
You just do podcasting on the side because it's fun. Yeah, jeez. But my God, that is heavy. I think there's a pretty distinct possibility that some of these people are being targeted by the government, and they're finding people that have a psychological profile that makes them easier to manipulate and to create like a panic hysteria in order to induce levels of violence. I don't know when it comes to the average guy on the street, because there's a certain level where it just becomes, yeah, there's crazy people. Man, I've dealt with crazy people exactly like what you're talking about, like people just talking to themselves, insanity, gibbering, like lunatic sort of stuff. But when we're talking about people that have, let's say the guy that tried to shoot Donald Trump, right? Somebody like that. If this guy goes, I'm hearing voices and they're trying to get me and all this stuff, the FBI, CIA, whatever your intelligence service in the country you're at is, they have psychological profiles on tons and tons and tons of people. I don't necessarily want to say every single person in the country or in the world, but they've got a lot on anybody that has any level of real online presence at all, where they can bring up everything you've looked up, everyone you've talked to and whatnot. They can control certain stuff of like what you see. I mean, even companies like Google, just from an advertising perspective, or Facebook, can control what ads you see, when you see it, what posts you see, what posts you don't see. And if somebody like the US government has any level of interest in controlling this on you, they could totally change how you perceive things and make you feel like you're going crazy, being followed. Like I have to do this because if I don't do this, America will end. The world will be over. I have to do this. He'll kill millions of people. Think of the babies, right? Like there's a certain level of hysteria that can be induced through that. But I also genuinely feel like what you were talking about of the like radio to skull technology or anything like that is a very distinct possibility in certain cases, but I feel like that's a lot more targeted. You know what I mean?
They could just be doing it for people like crooks, for example. If that was a genuine event, they could be like, you need to go and kill Trump today. You know, you don't like him.
Yeah.
And they could put voice in his head, and he'd be like, oh, stop the voices, you know, and then he'll go out and do it. But
well, for people
you know,
like in some cases, they don't even need the radio technology, because I've seen stuff with the FBI people where they have them on forums. They have literal feds on forums pretending to just be some guy on the anti-government forum. Is like, by the way, you should go commit crime X, right? Whatever that is. Because I don't want to be too specific here, but just some specific thing that they want you to do that you have to do. And they've already found out that you're somebody that's kind of mentally malleable. I'll try and put it that way to be very, very kind to these people, or give them as much leeway as possible. But
mentally
we're talking
malleable. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. People that are easily manipulated.
Hi, Offaly, from the chat there. Interesting, Kieran, that you knew the family of that guy that I was talking about.
So if you have any more info to throw our way on that, that would be amazing. Yeah,
if you've got anything to say on that, Kieran, let us know. There are some weird people out there, or people that there are people out there working for the government that that a lot of people don't know about, which I think exist. When I was working on a summer camp in Georgia, USA. Cleveland, Georgia. I was working on a Jewish camp, actually, summer camp. It was right near the Ku Klux Klan kind of area.
Yeah.
And I met a guy on the camp who was the lifeguard in the swimming pool. He was kind of a military-looking guy. And I was the driver on the camp. And one night we went out to Atlanta, Georgia, and went and had a few drinks, some gold schloggers, they were called, that had flecks of gold in them.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, nice drink. We had quite a few of those. And then this military guy started crying. We took him outside, and I was going, "What's the matter? Like, what's the problem?" And he goes, if I told you, I'd have to kill you." And I was like, I was with another guy from England, and we just laughed and goes, "What?" And we've heard that line before, but that's, what are you talking about? And he goes, "I work for the government, and I have to kill people." And I said, "What?" And this guy was crying, which kind of gave it a. I definitely believe he was telling the truth. To be honest, he said he has to kill. I'm going to say it because I know it's a banned word, but he said, I have to kill niggers." And we were on a Jewish camp with the Ku Klux Klan nearby, so I thought,
Dear
what the hell's he?
God.
Yeah, and I said, "What do you mean, like black people?" And he said, No, you don't understand. It can also mean white trash. It can also mean white trash. And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, what do you mean you have to kill people?" And he said, and he was crying. He was like constantly crying. He goes, he was going, he was holding his head in his hands, and he was saying, "So many people I've killed." And I was going, and then I was, the whole conversation was kind of stupid because I was saying, "Look, it's never too late to give up." Like I was telling him,
For real.
I was telling him to give up smoking, but he was talking about he had to kill people. And I said, you can stop, you don't have to do it. Like whatever it is you're doing, you don't have to do it. And he was crying, and I said, and he said, "You don't understand, man, and I have to do it. I have no choice." And then he said, "And I'm good at it as well. I'm good at it." And anyway, we took him back to the car, and he showed us his military ID. He's supposed to be a lifeguard, but he's got this military ID.
Yeah.
I think the guy was telling the truth, but it just shows you there's people in society that are doing things covertly. Luckily, the guy didn't kill us. He went back to his lifeguard job the next day, but we never talked about it with him again,
Well, you're not going to try to, because God forbid he just forgot it, and you're entirely
Hopefully he
fine.
forgot that the next day.
He doesn't just like, "Now I have to murder you in your sleep." Like, nah, man, that's I'm good. I'm good. But I've dealt with a lot of family members, and just, well, my God, I'm old enough now that people that I went to high school with and stuff that have been in the military that have severe PTSD, like severe PTSD. And let's be real, like most of those people that have dealt with that, they killed people for the government. They killed people for the government, and with not a whole lot of discrimination there. I don't know if it was quite as horrifyingly racistly motivated as the guy that you're talking about there, but dear God.
I had a friend, I'm full of anecdotes today, but I had another friend I used to work with teaching when I was teaching English in Ukraine, and he told me that I think it was during the Iraq war, he was in a plane and he had to go around bombing, dropping the bombs, and he knew that he was killing hundreds, perhaps thousands of people.
Just normal people, not military.
Just normal people, and it really screwed with his head. And there was a couple of times when I was with him in Ukraine, he would just like storm out of the bar. He'd be just like holding his hand. He was like, he couldn't deal with it, and then he killed himself. So the PTSD thing is very real. Yeah, he was a nice guy as well. Shame.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is when people are hollowed out by a government that doesn't give a damn about them, that just wants to use them to.
They don't give a shit. Yeah, just do your job. They don't give a shit about the.
And with the fallout of any of that, which can be horrible. It can destroy families, destroy this person's life, just ruin them as a person. And yet government doesn't care. Government, they've already gotten what they've wanted at that point. They toss you to the side like you're old trash.
Yeah. Any quick fire topics you want to quickly discuss for the next 5 minutes, and then?
Okay.
Well, actually, let me send the link out while you're talking, Seth. You can talk about a few topics, but I'm going to post the link in case there's anyone else there who wants to join us. Yeah. So I'm posting the link in the chat now. Anyone who wants to come and join us in 5 minutes, there's the link there.
I'm just going to start firing off some headlines and getting into it, and then you can feel free to add in when you want. We've got out of the London Guardian, the Ukraine war briefing. Kiev's forces strike Russian military airfield in Crimea. This is for a little bit ago. Vladimir Zelensky's commends troops for hitting Russian bases and logistics on occupied territory. Russia hands out long-term jails for alleged anti-war plots. Let's see. We've got Ukrainian missile forces struck a Russian military airfield in Crimea that has been used for long-range attacks, Ukraine said on Friday, in the latest of a series of blows against the Russian military in the occupied peninsula. Russia's Saki airfield, or Saki airfield, was in western Crimea, was targeted. The Ukrainian military's general staff said, adding it was assessing the aftermath. Quote, "This is one of the operational airfields that Russia uses to control the airspace, in particular the Black Sea airspace, and for launching airstrikes on Ukrainian territory." There was no immediate comment from Russia's defense ministry or local Moscow installed officials. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky implicitly acknowledged the strike, and so on and so forth. Obviously, there's some serious fighting going back and forth. We have here Ukrainian president acknowledges military incursion into Russia as fighting continues. This is far more recently. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged for the first time that his country's military forces were fighting in a surprise military incursion into Russia's Kursk border region. In his night video address, Zelensky said that he discussed the ongoing incursion, quote, "to push the war onto the aggressor's territory," with top Ukrainian commander Oleksandr Syrsky. Ukraine is proving that it can indeed restore justice and ensure the necessary pressure on the aggressor, Zelensky said. Meanwhile, Ukraine's incursion into Russia continued for a sixth day, the largest such attack since the full-scale invasion and unprecedented use of its Ukrainian military units on Russian soil. It caught Moscow unaware and was an embarrassment to Russian military leaders who have scrambled to contain the breach. Exact terms of the operation remain unclear, and Ukrainian military officials have adopted a policy of secrecy, presumably to ensure its success. Military experts have said that it is unlikely, or that it is likely intended to draw Russian reserves away from the intense fighting in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, while a presidential advisor suggested it may strengthen Kiev's hand in any future negotiations with Russia.
I've got a comment to make on that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's a trap, because Russian intelligence are usually pretty good. I would imagine they knew that was going to happen. I'm wondering whether they allowed them to come in. And now the Ukrainian army are advancing further into Ukraine. They're not just holding the ground. They're coming in further. I feel like if this was a real event and Russia didn't know about it, they would have they'd be bombarding them now. But they're still coming in. They're still coming in. So I'm wondering if it's a trap and they knew damn well,
or if it's even a real event, because this could entirely
even if
be
it's a
Western
real event,
propaganda.
if it's just part of if it's part of the story that's happening, they might. Sometimes I think that both sides are in on it and it's all a big pantomime.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they make up huge swaths of stuff. You and I both remember that Snake Island crap that was all over the place.
Exactly.
The Russian warship, go F yourself. That was all fake. That was fake.
But let's imagine this is real, and the Ukrainian army are going in, and now they're advancing even further. If this is a real war with two sides, and I always keep an open mind that it might not even be that, but Putin is waiting for them to get in even further, so they come in too far, and then they pounce on them and just obliterate them with a big semi-nuclear bomb or something like that. I don't know.
They could, but with the way that warfare works now, I doubt that they're going to go through anything so extreme. Whereas cutting them off with land forces or with airstrikes or something is far more likely.
Just bombarding them, though.
Yeah, exactly.
And escalating the war. I think all sides want. I think everyone, Russia, Iran, Western forces, Israel, the UK, USA, they all want a big world war. And I think that they're just letting it all happen. I think and I wouldn't be surprised if the war starts soon, but it might be, as I said, a lot of the articles with the army generals are talking 2 or 3 years from now. So maybe that's going to be the main peak, but I think we're gradually building towards that at the moment.
Yeah. Well, and we have one last thing when it comes to Ukraine. And I wondered if you wanted to talk about this, because you actually gave me the link earlier, was about the BBC stuff, the BBC.com news article about German arrest warrant over Nord Stream blast mystery issued.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have anything on that you wanted to talk about, or can I just jump in?
Only the link. Only you can read some if you want to save me opening the link. But I think the initial thing was that they'd found, just from memory, they were accusing a Ukrainian diver of doing it, but he'd escaped. And to me, it was it was pretty obvious that it was Western powers, the USA, probably the UK, and other allies of theirs that did this. Because Biden said, there's a quote, you can see a video of Biden saying, this Nord Stream's not going to happen. And the reporter goes, what do you mean it's not going to happen? And he said, like I said, somehow or other, we're going to stop it. And then someone else said something very similar in the Biden administration. And then it happened. It's like 100%. They ordered it. The Ukrainian diver may be one of the guys that was involved, but
actually did it, but they still made sure it happened. Yeah.
As I understand it, it would have taken more than one diver anyway. But so
I'll try and be quick on this one, just real fast for the audience. German state prosecutors trying to solve the mystery of who blew up the Nord Stream gas pipeline under the Baltic Sea in 2022 have issued an arrest warrant for a Ukrainian diving instructor. The suspect has been named as Vladimir Z by German media, like Zelensky. Real good stuff, guys. And have treated the sabotage like a sensational true crime drama. Ines Peterson, a spokeswoman for Germany's prosecutor general, declined to confirm the arrest warrant, telling the BBC that her office never commented so as not to jeopardize the investigation by giving the suspect a chance to escape. But the Polish prosecutor general spokeswoman Anna Adamiak in Warsaw told the BBC's Adam Easton that a European arrest warrant had indeed been passed to them by German prosecutors. When Polish officers went to Vladimir Z's home in early July, he had already left the country for Ukraine, she said. He had until then been living in a quiet residential area of Pruszkiw, a town near Warsaw, German media says. According to an investigation by 3 German media outlets, including public broadcaster ARD, Vladimir Z was part of a team of experienced Ukrainian divers who in September 2022 hired a German yacht, sailed out into the Baltic Sea and planted the explosives, blowing up 3 of the 4 Nord Stream pipelines. Ukrainian man and Ukrainian woman are also suspected of involvement. Obviously, we've already brought up our takes on that, but that's just to catch up people of what exactly it is we're talking about. It's very unlikely that this is just some random Ukrainian guys that are a part of this. And I have a feeling that Ukraine is eventually being set up to be like every other US puppet regime where they get turned on and people suddenly, Zelensky is the new Saddam Hussein. And they're like, oh my God, did you know that they were going way too far? That they were blowing up pipelines and stuff. They're causing untold environmental catastrophe damage and whatnot. They're killing tens of thousands of people in eastern Ukraine and stuff of Russian descent. It's terrible. I have a strong feeling that that is exactly how it's going to be portrayed in the future, and that all these guys are getting set up to get screwed. But that's just me, and we continue on to our final topic here.
I just wanted to mention briefly the link I was trying to share earlier was this one. UK must be ready to fight war in 3 years, the army head said. I already read some of this, but this was the article. But I've seen so many like this. Germany are preparing for war. Some other countries in Europe are preparing for war. I think I heard someone in the US say it as well. And they're all mentioning 2 to 3 years from now. But I reckon they're probably going to kick it off before that. Kieran says, basic version of what's happening, severe global destabilization leading to wars, power cuts, chaos, and then a united world order. Also, don't forget the pandemic, Kieran. They're probably going to... the pandemic news... monkeypox seems to be on the rise in Africa now. They're talking about a deadly strain, and the World Health Organization wants to declare it a national emergency, as they always do. Then we have the bird flu, which is still fizzling away in the background. If they're going to do what they did last time and bring the pandemic out to affect the US elections, then they've got to move pretty quickly, I would say. Anyway, back to you, Seth. We're probably down to our last 15 minutes now.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to join us, I'm going to send the link one last time. You need to join us within the next 5 minutes, really. Over to you, Seth.
Okay. Anybody that wanted to talk about the Israel stuff or anything going on? It's what we're going to be covering for the very end here because I need to make sure that we cover it because my God, is there a lot to talk about. Starting here out of the Associated Press News, apnews.com. Israel orders evacuation of part of Gaza humanitarian zone as war's toll passes 39,000 Palestinians. This is
And
actually
then didn't
from
they
the
bomb it afterwards?
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. That's what we're going to get into. And this is from last month, on the 22nd of last month. It's actually already over 40,000 people killed, which is insane. This is Deir al-Balah, Gaza Strip. The Israeli military ordered the evacuation Monday of part of the crowded area of the Gaza Strip it had designated for humanitarian. It designated a humanitarian zone, saying it is planning on operation against Hamas militants there. The order triggered a new flight of Palestinians, many of whom have taken refuge there in the past weeks. Thousands of Palestinians, many carrying backpacks and accompanied by children, walked down dusty roads under the scorching sun. Dilapidated cars with belongings tied on top maneuvered past buildings flattened by previous strikes. Many Palestinians have been uprooted multiple times in search of safety during Israel's air and ground campaign. Yeah, there's been an exodus of like hundreds of thousands of people from the area. But the thing is, not everybody can leave. All these people that are looking from Western audiences are like, why don't them stupid Palestinians just leave? I'm like, with what money? With what borders that have been closed, places that don't want to take any more refugees and aren't like the United States where they just have to open up their arms and take all the refugees from the whole world there. It doesn't fly like that. And a lot of these like neighboring nations, as much sympathy as they have for the Palestinians, they got not a whole lot of resources for these people, right? Especially given what that's going to do with their relations with Israel, who is very, very, very bloodthirsty. IDF strikes deep in, this is out of Washington Post pretty recently. Israel strikes deep in Lebanon after rocket attacks, stoking fear of wider war. Israel's promised revenge for a rocket strike from Lebanon that killed 12 in the Golan Heights town of Majal Shams. Hezbollah denied responsibility. Also, Golan Heights, what is that? Part of Syria, right? So in part of Syria that Israel has claimed that it's got to defend. Israel struck Hezbollah targets deep inside Lebanon on Sunday, officials said. The day after the rocket strike from Lebanon killed 12 people, most of them teenagers and children, in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, raising the specter of all-out war. The specter of all-out war? Israel's already declared all-out war on the Palestinians. Sunday strikes and what the Israeli military said were Hezbollah weapons caches and infrastructures fell short of the furious response Israeli officials said threatened after the strike Sunday on a soccer field in the Golan region where children were playing. Diplomats worked feverishly Sunday to blunt any Israeli retaliation. Lebanon's government, which would suffer from any escalation, entreated the United Nations to urge restraint from Israel. Foreign Minister Abdallah Abu Habib told Reuters. Continuing, we have Yemen's Hodeidah port, now an economic lifeline, now threatened by Israel. Strikes on Houthi-controlled port city had been stopped. Strikes on Houthi-controlled port city had been stopped out of fear for humanitarian consequences before Israel attacked. In 2018, pro-government Yemeni forces advanced to the port city of Hodeidah, the second most important city controlled by the Houthi rebels after the capital, Sana'a. Away from Yemen's mountains, the Houthis were struggling to deal with Saudi-led coalition airstrikes in the coastal plains south of Hodeidah and were falling back rapidly towards the city. After 4 years of war, the government side saw an opportunity to severely weaken the Houthis and possibly knock them out of the war, but it wasn't that simple. A battle for Hodeidah would likely lead to deadly urban warfare, and the city's port is a lifeline for Yemenis, with a vast majority of the humanitarian aid and economic goods coming into the country through it. Humanitarian organizations backed by Western nations, including the United States and United Kingdom, called for a ceasefire to avoid potential famine, and one was eventually agreed upon. The Houthis have sat in comfortable control over Hodeidah ever since, and the Yemeni government is weaker than ever. The rebel group is much more confident that it had emerged victorious from the country's war, and is flexing its muscles beyond Yemen. Fast forward to this past month, the Hodeidah's port has come under attack, but this time by Israel. The July 20th strikes on petroleum storage tanks and power stations near the port killed 6 Yemeni petroleum company workers and wounded 87 people, according to the Houthi authorities. Mustafa Nasir, the chairman of the Studies and Economic Media Center, said that more than 100,000 liters or 26,000 gallons of fuel were in the tanks, owned by the YPC or the independent business people renting spaces in the tanks. Nasser estimated the damage and value of the goods lost more than $100 million. Israel targeted Hodeidah in response to the most significant Houthi attack to date on Israel. July 19th drone strike on Tel Aviv and injured 10. Yeah, so there's appropriate Israeli response, as always. The Houthis have threatened further attacks in response to the Israeli strike, with spokesperson Mohammed al-Bakhedi telling Al Jazeera that Israel could expect a painful reply. Obviously, jack squat has happened in that camp, but that's always what they do. Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen right now, even Egypt back in the day, they would promise, oh, the retaliation will be so bad and we're going to get you, Israel. But they end up doing jack squat. They do nothing. And then Israel bitch slaps them further. We have continuing here. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh assassinated. Netanyahu says Israel dealt crushing blows to Iran-backed group. Let's see. We have world leaders sharing their reactions to the assassination of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran on Wednesday. The responses include condemnations, concern over the increased likelihood of escalation, and in some instances, statements in support of Israel. Yeah, I freaking bet. That is insane, right? Because we're talking about a foreign dignitary is visiting another country. Let's flip the script here. Totally different nations. Let's say China doesn't like the fact that Taiwan sends a political leader to the United States. And they're in Washington, D.C. here in the United States, having a great old time celebrating the new, let's say, Harris-Waltz administration or Trump-Vance administration. And then suddenly China sends a missile strike into Washington, D.C., killing a foreign dignitary. And then the rest of us are just supposed to suck our thumbs and go, oh, this is fine. This is cool. I wonder if the United States would have a particular reaction to that sort of action. I just have a particular kind of feeling that that's what it would be. Again, just absolute insanity that we're expected to go along with this. I'm trying to run through the last of what we got here. I'll just do the headlines. Israel claims it killed senior Hezbollah commander in strike on Beirut. Israel says that it killed a top Hezbollah commander after carrying out an airstrike on southern suburb of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Again, murdering foreign dignitaries and political leaders and whatnot seems like the great idea for the U.S. ally. What else we have here? Out of Reuters.com, U.S. to send more warships, fighter jets to Middle East to bolster defenses. Whose defenses are they bolstering? Oh, yes, Israel's defenses. Naturally. That's wonderful. And it's specifically bolstering defenses for Israel following threats from Iran and its allies in Hamas and Hezbollah. Because as we all know, Iran is such a warmonger nation. They've definitely killed hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions of people, right? I know definitely they're the ones that have started, over 200 wars since their inception as a nation, right? It definitely seems like an Iran problem and not a U.S. problem, right? Let's see what else we got. New Israeli intelligence, imagine this, suggests that Iran prepares to attack Israel within days, according to sources, unnamed sources from Axios.com. The Israeli intelligence community's updated statement is that Iran is poised to attack Israel directly in retaliation for the assassination of Hamas's political leader in Tehran, and is likely to do within days, according to two different sources with direct acknowledgement of the issue, told Axios. And finally, our last one here, U.S. approves $20 billion in weapons sales to Israel, including new F-15 fighter jets, tens of thousands of tanks, and mortar shells. Now, Scott, can we at least acknowledge, I know you and I, and I'm sure a lot of your audience have different perspectives on this issue. Can we at least acknowledge that there is a bit of asymmetry going on here when it comes to Hamas, Hezbollah, and even a straight up whole ass nation like Iran, and the military presence in Israel from the United States, United Kingdom, several other European nations, Canada, Australia, all of this aid that's going into Israel in the form of weapons and direct money for weapons. You see that, right? Just
absolutely. I mean, there's a genocide going on there with Israel as well. I mean,
yeah, over 40,000 Palestinians, man, and
it's terrible.
They say one out of every 30 of them is actually somebody working with Hamas or some level of government stuff. I'm like, that's 1 out of 30, man. Those are the worst odds.
I think the acceptable collateral damage has gone a bit wrong there.
Yeah.
Also, thanks for that, Seth.
You're
I
welcome.
think we can all agree that nobody's really doing much towards establishing peace as well. I mean, because Israel was sitting down to the table with the Palestinians and then blew up one of the and assassinated one of the main guys that
Leaders
used to attend the
for those
peace talks as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So to recap, the Israel-Iran situation could be escalating.
Oh yeah.
And
it's
you've
popping,
got you've got the same kind of people on both sides: Israel and the West, Iran, Russia, China, Ukraine. The Ukraine and Russia situation could be escalating again. You've got the Western powers siding with Ukraine, and you've got Russia. It's all like all these people, all these sides could come together, rather like it happened in the First and the Second World War, with all the alliances coming together.
We've been talking about this since 2014, man. Isn't that wild to think of? Our first episode that we did on Truth Sentinel was literally talking about this kind of stuff. We were talking about right now with Ukraine and the Russia invasion of Ukraine and the civil war that was going on there. And we also talked about the Khorasan group or Khorasan or whatever, and the Iranian terror threat. It's crazy to think that it's actually been 10 years of all of this. And in many ways, it's just repeating the hits over and over again. But at the same time, the difference is more people are dead.
It's all gone full circle, because the early episodes of Truth Sentinel were about MH370, but to start off with, it was about the Ukraine war, because I was living in Ukraine at the time when it all started kicking off, and then we did a show on targeted individuals whilst I was in Ukraine. It's all gone full circle, and we're talking about the same topics today.
Yeah, I highly encourage people to listen to older episodes, especially the earlier broadcasts, because you did a fantastic job on a lot of them.
We did loads and loads of interviews with some top people, and that's what the book is going to be about. I do encourage you to go to www.truthsentinel.co.uk, sign up to show interest in the book. I've done chapter 1. It's going to be excerpts from all the interviews we've done over the years. I did interviews about targeted individuals, about Ukraine, MH370. We did interviews about people who were having their heads taken off and put on other people's bodies. We did some crazy interviews.
You did one with Douglas Dietrich that actually brought up at one point Operation Mantis, which involved stuff with Iran and the Iran-Iraq war and whatnot.
Absolutely, it was a long time ago. Yeah, there was loads of different episodes about different topics. So yeah, if you go to Truth Sentinel website, you'll find those episodes. Also the YouTube channel Truth Sentinel 2. If you go to the playlist Truth Sentinel, you'll find all those old episodes. I might actually republish them on Rumble one by one, and also again on YouTube. And in the future I will do some other interviews with guests as well. Final wind down, just to remind you, I put some links there if you wanted to donate to buy me a coffee or PayPal. Every little bit helps. I do have to pay for the subscription to some of these channels, and I am pretty broke, to be honest. But
tell us about the Truth Sentinel cat.
Where is he? The Truth Sentinel cat. Time to say goodbye. Yeah.
You said you had news about him.
I have got some news. The news is I'm slightly worried, because this cat was a trained killer. It was a trained killer, bring me back mice, rats, and bats.
Maybe that's what that guy was talking about, Scott.
Maybe it was. Maybe you were the one. You were the one targeting him. Although, but as you can see, I'm slightly worried, because I was kind of counting on this cat. As society breaks down, I might have to eat some of the rats. He would go out hunting and bring them back for me. But I'm worried, because over the last month or two, he's become completely domesticated. As you can see, he's just he's like a cloth cat, and he's not bringing back any. It's like the killer instinct has gone.
Well, so, that happens to even the best of us, man.
I mean, look at it. There's nothing left. Nothing left. He's just become completely domesticated.
He's just a cat baby. It's fine. It's cool.
Anyway, that's True Sentinel cat news.
Well, thank God, Scott. You had me all worried and stuff. I thought you were gonna be like, he has kitty cancer and it's slowly eating him from the inside. I'm like, oh
Nope. No, it's far worse. He's become domesticated. Let's see. Final messages from me. Oh, I did want to mention, as usual, not always finishing on a positive note, because we're talking about the breakdown of society, pandemic, civil war, World War III, censorship escalating, and cyber attacks. But apart from that, I wanted to say things that people can do just in case society does break down. Make sure you've got a food source. Over here, I've got coconut trees. I've got some climbing gear. If things go arse up, then I'm gonna climb coconut trees and live on those. Also, I'm taking, as well as doing Muay Thai boxing, which I've been doing for about 7 years now. I did karate for 2 years. I've now just started a self-defense class, which is I do recommend people try. Kind of like Krav Maga. It's like street fighting. So if someone attacks you with a knife or a gun, what to do? It's actually good fun. I was being chased around the room with a plastic knife the last lesson by this little Thai girl. It was kind of funny, and then I chased after her. It was it's actually quite good fun. And then we were talking about how to take a gun off someone, and it's you're taking a big risk, but you take hold of the gun rather than their hand, and you twist it around and face them as you take it away from them. The knife one as well, and attacks from behind. It's all stuff that I think, especially women, it's worth taking, because it's better to practice in a controlled environment rather than wait until it actually happens.
Yeah, well, and for a
Hopefully
lot of
it's
people,
never
you
gonna
don't
happen to
necessarily
me.
live in a country where guns and like a concealed carry is legal. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Seth. Actually, do you carry a gun, or does everyone in the US
I
carry a
cannot
gun?
confirm or deny anything.
Or deny?
Scott,
I was
that's
actually
what
expecting.
makes it.
I was tricking you there, because I was.
No.
Because I mean, you might have just pulled it out and said, "Here it is," but no, I was just
Only a
testing you.
moron does
gave me
that,
the right
Scott, because
answer.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. If you don't know if I have it or not, then if you roll up on me, well, then you're prepared at that point.
You passed the
Because
test.
otherwise,
That was
you better be.
that was a trick question. You passed.
Okay, before we go, you know what the most beautiful thing is, Scott? We talked this entire time, and we did not mention the Olympics one time. As somebody that has gotten so tired of the goddamn brain dead normies out there, just the Olympics, this has been absolutely wonderful and refreshing as hell, man. Like, oh my God.
Talk about Tom Cruise abseiling down into the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, all of that has been painful as hell to see. But anyways, we're going to call it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Has had a wonderful time on the broadcast. Anything else we can bring up, let us know. Send links and whatnot, especially to Scott, or through the email or the website or anything, truthsentinel.co.uk. And we will see you hopefully in a couple weeks. This might actually be one of my last broadcasts for a while, because I've got to get relocated. And so that's going to kind of suck until we get our Wi-Fi situation worked out and actually have solid enough internet. Because I'm not going to do this to you where it's like, I have some internet, but not enough internet. And it's not going to mess around with that crap.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, we'll do a show as soon as we can. I'm sure there'll be some big events happening. Yeah, one more time. Email is scottsentinel9@gmail.com. That's Scott with 2 T's. And www.truthsentinel.co.uk. Send your music, send your comments, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us, whether you're listening live or listening later. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yo, thanks, Seth. That was good. A nice, good chat there. I think we covered most of the main things that have happened since the last show. I actually thought it was longer. It felt like it had been 6 months, but it was only.
It says we're still
2
live. Are we still recording?
Goodbye, everyone.